the tired millionaire. Victor Moreau was the kind of man many admired. Owner of one of the largest fortunes in the country, with diversified businesses in real estate, technology, and entertainment, his life was full of parties, travel, and encounters with stunning women. However, behind all the glamour, Victor carried a deep emptiness. He knew that his wealth isolated him from the real world and that the people around him rarely truly cared about him. In his mansion, sitting in a leather armchair, he slowly sipped an aged whiskey. His butler, Richard, entered the room silently. "Mr. Moreau, do you need anything else?" Richard asked, observing his boss's thoughtful expression. "No, Richard. Just thinking," Victor replied, sighing. "If you'll excuse me, sir, I've noticed that you've been more thoughtful lately. Is something bothering you?" Victor hesitated for a moment. Richard had been with him for many years. He was a loyal confidant. "I'm tired, Richard. Of all the people around me, no one seems to see me for who I am. It's always about the money, the status, what I can provide. I don't know who to trust anymore." He paused and looked at the butler. "I need something real." Richard, with the wisdom of years of living together, pondered for a moment before speaking. "Maybe you need to distance yourself for a while. See the world from a different perspective. I've thought about that. In fact, I have something in mind. There's a beauty pageant happening in town. I thought about attending, but not as myself." "What do you mean, sir?" Richard asked, intrigued. "I'm going to disguise myself, Richard. I'm going to dress up as a beggar, to see how people really treat me. I want to find out who in this superficial world can see beyond appearances." Richard raised an eyebrow in surprise, but then smiled slightly. "Sounds like an intriguing idea, sir. And how do you plan to pull it off?" "I've already planned it all out. Tomorrow, I'll go to the pageant in disguise, and no one will know who I am. I want to see how they act when they have no idea they're in front of a millionaire." Richard nodded in agreement. "I'll make the arrangements, sir." The disguise and the pageant. The next day, Victor underwent a complete transformation. His hair was left disheveled, his clothes replaced with torn and dirty ones, and he applied special makeup to age him and give him the appearance of a man who lived on the streets. The millionaire was unrecognizable. When he arrived at the hotel where the beauty pageant would be held, he mingled with the passers-by, sitting on the sidewalk next to the main entrance. The event attracted a diverse audience: onlookers, photographers, and of course, the candidates for the title of Miss Elegance. The young women arrived in luxurious cars, wearing designer dresses and smiling for the cameras. Victor watched them, trying to capture their reactions. It was then that he saw Mary for the first time. She was in the middle of the rush, helping the contestants organize their outfits and coordinate the show's schedules. Unlike the glamorous women who participated in the contest, Mary was simple. Her beauty did not lie in expensive clothes or heavy makeup, but in her serene and attentive presence. While she was helping one of the models, a conversation caught her attention. "Look at that beggar over there on the sidewalk," said one of the contestants, a tall woman with impeccably tied-up blonde hair. "Does he think he can be here? How embarrassing!" "Totally out of place," replied another contestant, laughing. "Does he think anyone will give him money at this event?" Victor heard the comments, but remained silent. He knew that this would be part of the audition. However, it was Mary who stood out amidst the laughter. She frowned, clearly bothered by the other women's words. After a moment of hesitation, she headed for the hotel exit, walking straight up to Victor. "Hi, are you okay?" Mary asked, crouching down beside him with a gentle smile. Victor looked at her, surprised by her attitude. "Yes, I'm fine," he replied, trying to maintain the pose of a man who lived on the streets. Mary continued to smile, with a sincere expression of concern. "Are you sure? I can get you something to eat or drink. It seems like you've been here for a while." Victor was momentarily speechless. He had never met someone who, without knowing him, offered help in such a genuine way. "Thank you, but you don't have to. You're very kind," he said. She nodded, still looking worried, But then one of the coordinators called her away, and she had to get back to work. Victor watched her as she walked away, and a different feeling began to form inside him. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had met someone who cared about others, without expecting anything in return. Backstage intrigue. Behind the scenes of the pageant, the competition was fierce. The contestants, although they smiled for the cameras and the judges, treated each other with disdain and, often, malice. Rivalries formed, and some women did everything they could to sabotage the others' chances. The most popular among the contestants was Claire, a famous model, whose arrogant behavior dominated the backstage area. "I heard that poor Mary has her eye on a beggar out there," Claire commented in a venomous tone, as she applied another coat of lipstick. "She really has no idea what she's doing here." "Of course, she's just an assistant," replied one of the other contestants. "She shouldn't even be in the same room as us." Mary, hearing the laughter and comments, decided to ignore them. She was already used to that kind of attitude. Even though she wasn't one of the contestants, she knew that her role here was important. She just wanted to do her job well, without getting involved in the intrigues. However, that night would be long for her. Claire, noticing that Mary was getting closer and closer to the beggar, decided it would be funny to provoke the situation. She and some other contestants made a bet, who would be the first to humiliate the man in the most creative way. "Let's see how far this story goes," Claire said, smiling mischievously at the others. However, with each new attempt at provocation, Mary always appeared by Victor's side, offering her help and sympathy. Mary's behavior began to attract the attention not only of the contestants, but also of some of the judges and the contest organizers themselves. One of the organizers, Robert, was particularly interested in Mary and noticed her interaction with the beggar. He approached one of the contestants, Denise, who was his favorite for the contest. "Did you see that girl, Mary, talking to that beggar?" Robert asked, crossing his arms. "Yes, it's getting weird, don't you think?" Denise replied, also interested in feeding the gossip. Robert nodded. "I'll have a talk with her. This could be a problem for the contest." Revelations and conflicts. In the following days, Victor's behavior continued to surprise Mary. She realized that he was no ordinary beggar. He had a dignified demeanor, even with his dirty clothes and his face covered in marks of exhaustion. Whenever she approached him to help him, he would thank her politely, but he never asked for anything. This intrigued her. What was a man like him doing there? One night, after one of the stages of the contest had ended, Mary decided to do something more. She took a bag with some fruit and bread from the hotel and took it to Victor, who was sitting on the sidewalk. "Here," she said, holding out the bag. "For you." Victor, once again surprised by her generosity, took the bag with a grateful smile. "You're very kind, Mary. But why do you do this?" he asked. Mary shrugged, sitting down next to him on the sidewalk, not caring what others would think. "I don't know. I think it's the right thing to do. And you strike me as someone who hasn't had much luck lately." Victor chuckled softly, appreciating how far he was from being unlucky. "Let's just say things aren't exactly as they seem," he replied, his tone mysterious. Mary glanced at him, not understanding the depth of his answer, but she didn't want to press him. They spent a few minutes in silence, watching the movement on the street, until Mary finally broke the silence. "Are you going to be around here for long?" Victor smiled, now with an expression that mixed sadness and hope. "Maybe for a few more days. I have some things to take care of." That encounter, however, did not go unnoticed by Claire and the other candidates. The next day, Claire decided to confront Mary backstage. "So, Mary, have you decided to do charity work for the beggar?" Claire teased, with the contemptuous tone she always used. Mary, already accustomed to the venomous comments, calmly responded. "It's not charity, Claire. It's just being human." Claire laughed, tossing her hair back arrogantly. "Well, good luck with that. Maybe he'll have some change to give you back." The backstage of the contest began to turn into a true battle of egos. Amidst the intrigues and conflicts, Victor watched everything closely, waiting for the right moment to reveal his true identity. The outcome and the truth. Finally, the day of the grand finale of the contest arrived. The atmosphere was tense, with the candidates anxious and the judges ready to evaluate the last performance. Mary, as always, was backstage helping to organize everything, while Victor, still disguised as a beggar, watched from a distance. Despite his humble appearance, he was more attentive than ever, especially because that night would be decisive. The disguise had helped him see the true intentions of the people around him, and he already knew that the audition was coming to an end. However, a bigger mystery still lingered in his mind. What did Mary really feel for him? Backstage, Claire and Denise were plotting something. "This beggar is getting unbearable," Claire complained, crossing her arms. "I know what we're going to do. Let's sabotage Mary's performance. She doesn't deserve to be here," Claire whispered to Denise, who nodded with a mischievous smile. The two approached one of the lighting technicians and made a deal, bribing the technician to change the lights during the final performance, which would disturb the candidates. Meanwhile, Mary was nervous. She wasn't one of the contestants, but she felt so involved in the event that she couldn't ignore the competitive atmosphere. For her, humility and character were more important than any beauty title. However, in the last few days, something else had been on her mind: the mysterious beggar with whom she had formed an unexpected friendship. In the audience, Victor watched everything closely. The contestants paraded one by one, their clothes shining under the intense lights of the stage. They waved to the judges and introduced themselves with impeccable smiles. However, to Victor, each one seemed more superficial than the last. He had already lost interest in them, and his eyes searched for only one person. At that moment, Claire noticed Mary's presence near the stage. She approached with a sarcastic smile. "Surprised you're here, Mary? You're just an assistant, you shouldn't be in the contestants' area, you know?" Mary looked at her unfazed. "I'm just here to help, Claire. I don't need to compete to feel valued." Claire gave a short laugh. "Well, good luck with that. I hope you find something that flatters you, because beauty is definitely not your strong point." Mary was preparing to answer when the stage lights flickered abruptly, causing a distraction. The lights went out completely for a few seconds, and then came back on, but unsteadily. Claire and Denise chuckled softly at the chaos they had caused. Dinner and the confrontation that same night. After the contest, Mary decided to take a walk to clear her head. She walked through the dark streets near the hotel until she saw Victor sitting on her usual sidewalk. She felt herself drawn toward him, as if something about this mysterious man intrigued her deeply. "Are you okay?" she asked, sitting down next to him as she had done before. Victor looked at her with a weak but gentle smile. "Yes, I'm fine. Actually, I was thinking about you." Mary was surprised by his sincerity. "Thinking about me? Why?" "Because you're different, Mary," Victor replied bluntly. "Since I got here, you're the only person who's treated me like a human being. I'm not just a beggar to you. And that is something rare." Mary felt her cheeks flush slightly, but she kept her tone calm. "I just treat people the way I want to be treated. There's nothing special about it." "Yes, there is," Victor insisted. "You don't know me, you don't know anything about me, and yet you still care. That's why. I'd like to invite you to dinner. Just to talk." Mary hesitated. She had never been out with a homeless person before, and the proposal seemed strange. But there was something about Victor that made her trust him. "Okay," she said finally. "But just dinner." Victor smiled. "Perfect." The secret revealed the dinner was at a small neighborhood restaurant, simple but cozy. Mary felt more at ease there than she would at any fancy event. Victor, still dressed in his homeless clothes, seemed like a completely different person in a more intimate setting. As they talked about life, she realized that he had a wisdom and depth that she hadn't expected. "You seem to have lived through a lot," Mary commented, watching him closely. "Maybe I've lived longer than you think," he replied enigmatically. Mary smiled. "Always so mysterious. You know, I never asked you your name." Victor was silent for a moment, wondering if this was the right time to reveal it. But he felt it was time to be honest with her. "My name is Victor. Victor Moreau." Mary's eyes widened. "Victor Moreau? The millionaire? Is this some kind of joke?" He shook his head. "No, Mary. It's not a joke. I'm Victor Moreau. And I disguised myself as a beggar because I wanted to find someone who would see me beyond my wealth." Mary was shocked, her mind processing what she had just heard. The weeks she had spent with Victor, the man she thought was a beggar, was, in fact, one of the richest men in the country. She didn't know how to react. Why did you do this?" she asked finally, her voice shaking. "Because I was tired of meeting empty people, who only approached me because of my money," Victor explained sincerely. "I wanted to find someone real, someone like you." Mary, however, moved away slightly. "And now you think I only approached you because I didn't know who you were?" Victor felt uncomfortable with the accusation. "No, Mary, that's not it." "Then what is it?" she asked, irritated. "You disguised yourself, lied, and now you think you can judge what I feel or don't feel." "I didn't want to deceive you. I needed to know who you really were." Mary stood up, her eyes full of hurt. "You know what, Victor? I don't care who you are. But you've damaged my honor. You lied to me. How can I trust you now?" Victor stood there, standing still, while Mary hurriedly left the restaurant, without looking back. The reconnection. Days passed, and Victor tried countless times to contact Mary, but she avoided him at all costs. He reflected on his actions and realized that he had been unfair. His plan to test people had led him to make a mistake. He had hurt the only person who truly mattered to him. Decided to make things right, Victor decided to take a different approach. He organized a charity event at his mansion and personally invited Mary, explaining that he wanted to make amends. On the day of the event, Mary reluctantly decided to go. When she arrived at the mansion, she saw Victor waiting for her at the entrance, no longer in disguise, but as the real Victor Moreau. He looked nervous, something she never imagined she would see in him. "Mary, I know I made a mistake," he began, his voice serious. "I was proud and arrogant. I didn't think about the consequences of lying to you. I just wanted you to know that I deeply regret it." She looked at him, her gaze steady. "And how can I trust that you won't test me again?" Victor took a deep breath. "I can't give you any guarantees beyond my word. But I can show you who I really am, without lies, without disguises. I want you to know the real me, not the millionaire, but the man." Mary watched him for a long moment, then sighed. "This will take time, Victor. If you really want this to work, you'll have to prove to me that you're worth it." Victor smiled, a genuine smile. "I'm willing to wait as long as it takes." The uncertain future. In the weeks that followed, Victor and Mary began to get closer again, this time in a more open and honest way. They met frequently, talking about their lives, dreams, and fears. Little by little, Mary began to trust him again, but there was still a mystery hanging over their relationship, the real reason behind the disguise. One night, during a walk in the park, Mary asked the question that had been bothering her since the beginning. "Victor, why did you choose a beauty contest to do this experiment?" He looked at her thoughtfully before answering. "Because, for me, these contests represent the height of superficiality. I knew I would find beautiful women there, but I wanted to see if any of them had anything beyond their external beauty." Mary smiled slightly. "And what did you find?" "I found you," he replied, looking deep into her eyes. The mystery surrounding Victor's past seemed to be unraveled, but their relationship still faced challenges. After all, the path to true love was full of trials and secrets yet to be discovered. Well, that's the story so far. What did you think of all this? Click the like button and subscribe to the channel to read the continuation soon. See you in the next story. Bye.